Sorry I'm back using my webcam again, but we'll all survive. So Hayao Miyazaki was born in Tokyo in 1941. That was an important year. His father worked at an airplane parts factory, and his mother was a strong and independent intellectual. His work very much reflects this upbringing, as we see throughout his works both a fascination with flying and with strong and independent women. A tendency to depict women as strong and smart, whether they're older women or girls. Miyazaki came of age during the American occupation, and during his last year of high school saw Toei Animation's Legend of the White Serpent. Remember, that was 1958. That was Japan's first color feature-length animated film, which convinced him to become an animator. And due to his widespread popularity and influence over the Japanese animation industry, he has been dubbed the Disney of Japan. So many of Miyazaki's films fit into the magical girl genre, which is discussed in the Patrick Drazen reading that you had. So strong female protagonists in anime are capable of independence and often violent action, and yet still retain the quality of yasashi, or essential sweetness and kindness. The heroine in the first well-known film that Miyazaki directed, which was Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind from 1984, certainly displays this yasashi nature. The film also introduced some of the main elements which apply to most of Miyazaki's films. An ambivalence towards technology, a linking of the feminine with nature, a discussion of the importance of history, folklore, and the past, and, importantly, the vengefulness of nature when faced with human destruction. So here's a quick clip of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Just kidding, YouTube dinged me for copyright. YouTube! But just pretend that all of these little dust motes floating in the air here are spores from the toxic jungle. And I will try to find a link on YouTube that at least gives you a taste of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So the basic premise of this movie is that there was this apocalyptic war that created this toxic jungle, and Nausicaa, who's the princess of the Valley of the Wind, has to find a way for this toxic jungle and to coexist. And if you haven't already seen this film, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely stunning. With the profits from Nausicaa, Miyazaki founded Studio Ghibli with his longtime collaborator Isao Takahata in 1985. His next film, Castle in the Sky, was the first produced under the name Studio Ghibli. This film shares the same basic themes with Nausicaa, except focuses on a lost civilization floating in the sky. This is more or less a version of the Atlantis myth, but with an added component of nature versus technology. Although it requires technology to make the lost city of Laputa float through the air, nature has consumed the city over the course of generations and transformed it into this Eden-like place. And the presence of a huge tree that represents the power of nature and ancestral heritage also appears in My Neighbor Totoro from 1988. In this film, the spirits of the forest are given this corporeal form that only children can see. That's Totoro right there on the left. Those are the kids, Satsuki and Mei on the right. That on the far left you see their father, none the wiser, while his kids play out in nature with forest spirits. But in this sense we see the influence of Shinto, the idea that nature contains friendly, even protective spirits. That wouldn't be foreign to most Japanese people. I mean, Shinto again is the biggest religion in Japan, and it's based around rituals of giving honor to the past and connecting past and present. I mean, it's linked to the worship of the divinity or the life force in everything. So there's this spirit or an essence or a God presence in everything, from rocks to trees to people. It's almost as if everything has a soul that's all part of the same big soul. If it's an especially important or vital manifestation of this power that's around us and a part of us all the time, then it's called kami. But not just anyone can sense it. You have to have a pure and cheerful heart and mind. That's my copyright-free Totoro. And this, by the way, is something that Shinto has in common with lots of religions and lots of meditation practices too. This ideal of needing to somehow purify yourself to connect to the divine in the everyday. Anyway, in Shinto, we are responsible for purifying ourselves physically, ethically, spiritually, in order to make those connections. In order to connect with this generative force that is a part of everything. You are responsible for developing your own strength of character. And as we'll see, that's also tied to the notion of a journey of self-discovery. And as we'll see in the 1997 film Princess Mononoke, the young male protagonist has to embark on this journey of self-discovery at the beginning of the film. And I should add, too, that the idea of embarking upon this journey of self-discovery is really closely related to the ideal of the samurai in Japanese culture. The 5 qualities of the samurai are loyalty, bravery, simplicity, truthfulness, and politeness. And this is laid out in the Bible of Bushido, or the way of the warrior. So the importance of the samurai's values and the importance of going on this solo quest, again, look at what Ash Ketchum is doing. We see this again and again in anime. Okay, so here are some things that I want you to watch for in Princess Mononoke. First of all, I want you to pay attention to some of the themes that I mentioned that appear in nearly all of Miyazaki's work. An ambivalence towards technology, a linking of the feminine with nature, and a discussion of the importance of folklore, history, and the past, traditions still having value, and the vengefulness of nature when faced with human destruction. But there are a few other things that I want you to watch for too. Colin Odell and Michelle LeBlanc write in their book about Studio Ghibli that closely linked with the Shinto ethic is a living collection of interconnected beings that should be respected. So often the earth is portrayed as suffering as a result of human ignorance. And yet, human attempts to tame and change and harness the power of the natural world aren't all bad either. So where do we see some of these ideas in the film? How are good and evil figured in the film? Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? Or is it that simple? What do you think, for instance, that we're supposed to think about the ironworks? And how does Miyazaki tell you about his characters, visually speaking? How do you think we're supposed to feel about Lady Eboshi, for instance, and how do you not? Related to that, what sort of gender roles play out in the film? How are motherhood, feminism, and heroism imagined? And how does he contrast the forests and the mountains with the man-made structures? And how does this relate to what we talked about last week with regards to the ambivalence of technology and the treatment of technology in films like Akira? What's the symbolic value of Ashitaka's infection? And how is our image of the environment here linked to how I talked about Shinto and the concept of kami? You might also look for elements of the Western genre here, in the influence of American cinema. Now, at the end of the film, has a lasting peace been achieved between the ironworks and the forest? Do you think that mankind can exist and progress can occur without harming nature? What's the vision of the past and what's the vision of the future here? What does the film ultimately say about the relationship between nature and civilization and the value of history, folklore, and the past? Okay, I think that's plenty to chew on. I hope you enjoy Princess Mononoke.